Okay, let's talk about zero trust. You've heard this buzzword thrown around everywhere, right? It sounds super complicated, maybe even a little scary, like building some kind of digital fortress. But what if I told you the whole point, the real genius behind it, is actually to make security simpler? Yeah, simpler. That's what we're going to dig into. And this quote from George Sand, it just nails it. The whole point of zero trust isn't to add more and more complex walls. It's about taking a step back and rethinking everything from the ground up with a much smarter and, believe it or not, simpler idea. So, before we get to the solution, we've got to understand the problem. The absolute crisis that forced this change. And to do that, we have to travel back in time to the exact moment the biggest companies in the world realized their fortresses, well, they were basically built on sand. Yeah, our story doesn't start in some boring boardroom with a PowerPoint presentation. Nope, it starts right in the middle of a massive cyber attack, one that completely changed the game for how big tech thinks about security. Forever. Picture this. It's 2009. A super sophisticated wave of cyber attacks, codenamed Operation Aurora, just slams into dozens of major US companies. And one of the biggest targets? You guessed it, Google. But here's the kicker. The attackers weren't just grabbing random user data. Oh no. They were going after something way, way more valuable. They were after Google's economic moat. In the business world, a moat is your secret sauce, right? It's that one thing you have that keeps all your competitors away. For Google back then, that was its search and advertising tech. That was the crown jewel, the heart of the entire company. And the scary part? The attackers got in. They breached the walls and walked out with pieces of that core intellectual property. Just think about that for a second. That's like somebody breaking into the vault at Coca-Cola and just walking out with a secret formula. This was a wake-up call. It proved beyond a doubt that the old way of security was totally, fundamentally broken. So that Aurora attack, it blew the doors wide open on this fatal flaw in the old way of thinking. This idea of a secure perimeter, the whole castle and moats thing. Well, that castle was crumbling and fast. And why was it failing? Well, because the world it was designed to protect just disappeared. Think about it. Back in 2009, work happened in the office. You had your big, clunky desktop PC. The company's servers were humming away in a closet down the hall. Everything was contained. Now, fast forward to today. We're working on laptops from coffee shops. Our phones are work devices. We're using cloud apps like Microsoft 365 and AWS for everything. Our teams are spread all over the world. The whole idea of a company having an inside and an outside is pretty much gone. So the real killer, the fatal flaw in that old model, was something called implicit trust. Basically, it meant that once an attacker got past the front door, maybe with just one stolen password, they were suddenly treated like a trusted employee. They had the keys to the kingdom. They could just wander around freely, moving from system to system, totally unrestricted. And a VPN, that doesn't fix the problem at all. It just gives the bad guy a nice, secure tunnel into that same broken, overly trusting network. The perimeter, that line we thought was protecting us, had become totally meaningless. So what did Google do? They didn't just patch the holes. They started a project called BeyondCorp to rethink everything. And what came out of it was this radically new approach, one that boiled down all of security to just one simple, powerful question asked over and over and over again. The entire philosophy, the whole foundation of zero trust, starts with one word: who. It doesn't care if you're on the office Wi-Fi or at a hotel. It doesn't care what country you're in. The first and only thing it wants to know is, who exactly are you? And right after that comes the second, just as important part of the question. What? What specific thing are you trying to get to? What app? What file? What server? That's it. Trust is never, ever assumed anymore. It has to be proven every single time for every single request. Okay, so how does this actually work? Well, it's a really elegant 3-step check that happens for every single thing you try to do. Step 1 is what? What are you trying to reach? That's just its network address, its DNS name. Easy enough. Step 2 is who. Who are you? And that's verified by your company's identity system. Think Okta or Microsoft's login, your digital ID. But the real magic, the secret sauce, is step 3, context. Where are you logging in from? What time of day is it? Is the software on your laptop up to date? See, a hacker might be able to steal your password, but faking all of that context, that's a whole lot harder. Sounds pretty simple and powerful, right? So Why does it seem so confusing when you actually try to do it? Well, that's where we run headfirst into the marketing departments of all the big security vendors. I'm sure you've been bombarded with a million acronyms. SASE, ZTNA, it's an alphabet soup out there. And look, vendors love creating these new categories because it helps them sell you new products. But honestly, a lot of this jargon just confuses the simple core idea we've been talking about. So let's cut through all that noise. The most important thing to remember is this. At its heart, all this tech is just about connecting the what, which is the DNS address, with the who, which is your identity provider. And it does that while checking the context. That's it. That's the whole game. But there is a huge trap here. It's been called the bird in a cage problem, and that's a perfect way to think about it. If you let one single vendor control your identity system, the who part of our equation, you're effectively locking yourself in their cage. Suddenly, your choices for everything else, for the what, are limited by what that one vendor allows. Your identity system is your new perimeter, and you absolutely have to control it. And that brings us right back to where we started this whole conversation. All this tech, all this strategy, it's all for one reason, to protect what makes your business special. It's about protecting your moat. And if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this. You cannot outsource your brain when it comes to protecting your moat. Look, you can buy all the fancy tools, you can hire armies of consultants, but you can't pay someone else to do the strategic thinking about what truly matters to your business. You, your team, you have to own that. All right, so let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. First, Zero Trust is a strategy, a way of thinking, not some product you can just buy off a shelf. Second, it's all about constantly asking who is accessing what and checking the context. Third, in this new world, your identity system is your new perimeter. And finally, and this is the big one, you have to own the problem. Don't just buy a solution. And all of this really leaves us with one final question. A question for you to take back to your team, to your company. It's got nothing to do with which vendor you're using or what fancy acronyms are on your roadmap. It's way simpler and 1,000 times more important than that. Ask yourself, is your moat truly secure?